Thank you for being here again and doing this talk. Well, what Keith told, I just had the BGP and message queuing issue also in January. I want to go some deeper into the code and have an example of what we are using for this. So something about myself and our organization. I'm Pim van Stam from the Netherlands. Just working in IT for 30 years now, and in the internet industry for 20 years. And I work for the NBIP, that's a Dutch foundation for services for the internet service providers. And we are running the NaWas since 2014. And that's the Dutch scrubbing center, national scrubbing center to handle DDoS attacks. For this, we have a large infrastructure in the Netherlands for dealing with DDoS traffic. And we're doing this since 2014 in the Netherlands, but now since almost a year, also abroad in other countries. And we are, for instance, connected to the links to connect to UK customers. And well, in our environment, AS numbers are very important. That's where customers are connecting to, and having prefixes with the BGP is a thing where we live for. So prefixes are advertised and withdrawn in our network, and we have to deal with them to see if there are DDoS attacks and mitigate it. So we also have to report to our customers what we are doing with their traffic. So we need information about what's going on. And we do need to mitigate the traffic, the DDoS traffic. So we need to know what prefixes are possible in our network. And because of the large number of customers, we do have a lot of prefixes that can route through our network in the databases. And because of the number of prefixes, we cannot handle it with a static database. So we need to have a dynamic control of what's going on in our network and which prefixes are advertised through the NaWas, and do something with it. And the dynamic aspect needs us to do something with the prefix that advertised. So we had a combination with the messaging process with RabbitMQ, what we already had in a framework, and make it possible to deal with the advertisements. And the idea was to have it combined. Right, and here's our infrastructure as we do it now. And the key element here is to separate this reporting and monitoring aspect from the infrastructure by means of the exabgp. And that handles the BGP advertisements on one side and pushes messages to the RabbitMQ server on the other side, and then we can do all kind of things with the messages we receive or we got there. And because of the standard elements in the core infrastructure, we can also use all kind of integrations. But I want to focus now on the Mqbgp library we used. That's in this next to the exabgp component. And from there, we go to the messaging server, the RabbitMQ. And from there, all kind of integration possible. I showed it the previous time. We can do it with Elasticsearch and make graphs out of it. But that I'm not showing this today. I'm just going into what you can do with the Mqbgp library. But all kind of integrations are possible. Well, and for now, we have the components in the infrastructure we use. We use MX routers for the traffic, and the exabgp is on the server connected to one of the core routers, and it's receiving the BGP updates. And the glue of it all is the Mqbgp library. That's something we wrote ourselves. It's not very big or very fancy, but it's gluing it all together. And the RabbitMQ is for the messaging server. That's just a standard installation you can all do with a Linux server and install it from the packages, just like the exabgp. And what we defined, I will show you later, is the messages we can send on the bus, and you can send and receive. And then the sender is the exabgp, and then we have all kind of receivers using this information. I will show you the prefix listener that's just listening to the changes and send an email alert to the NOC. But we also can use it for setting the configuration for the switches, for retrieving SNP data, for making the graphs. We also use it for splitting the S-flow data we get from our infrastructure, and we set it to the destination AS number to the customer of this AS number. So each customer can receive the flow data from their own traffic on our network. And other things is to have the profiles and the mitigation devices based on the customer, the AS number, and the prefix that belongs to this AS number. Well, the Mqbgp library is written in Python. It is on GitHub. And has two parts, the sending and the receiving side. The sender can use this library to send the messages, and it will end up in the message queuing server. And the receiving side, the client can use this data. Well, and actually, client to server is not really true. Any system can take a role. So it's about receiving and sending messages. Because of the open infrastructure, and you can use all kind of BGP daemons. I use the exabgp, but you can also use other kind of daemon that can interact with this Python library. And I showed examples of clients that can use these messages. If I go into the MQ library, it's pretty straightforward how it works. It works with classes, and classes can have functions in it that can do something. And mainly two parts are in the library. That is the prefix part for dealing with BGP prefixes. And the queue and listener part for handling the messaging, so connecting to the message server and listening to messages. The two components for what the Mqbgp is making it. The prefix message class is the main component for the prefix messages. What's in a message is the AS number, the prefix itself, so the IP block, community string, all kind of elements that are necessary to handle something. The prefix list message is the possibility to get a list of prefix messages. And the prefix list request message belongs to this. It is possible that a receiver keeps track of the prefix messages it receives and is able to send the received messages and can take a list of advertised prefixes and remove the withdrawn prefixes from this list. So have an idea of what's going on. And with a prefix list request message, someone can ask to this system, please give me your prefix list. It's optional to implement it. So if someone set a message of a prefix list request message on the bus and no one keeps track, then there will no answer. And if a system keeps track of the list, then it can answer this message. It gives some form of state of the current prefixes that are advertised on your network. Well, and with the class Q, you can connect to the RabbitMQ implementation or some other message broker that that's implementing this. And with the class listener, a client can listen to the message that are sent by the message broker. And then the messages are sent out from the prefix message class.
Hi, Pim.
Yeah.
We have 3 minutes remaining.
Right.
3
okay.
minutes. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. The exabgp, I don't know if you know what it is, but it's a BGP daemon. So it connects to other BGP routers. And it's very simple. It receives and sends through standard in and standard out what you can do. It has 2 components, the configuration and the monitoring of Python script for the input and output. And we connect it from the MX, just like any other peer. And we do it only for customers prefixes that are advertised, but you can also do the full table. And this is the configuration where the neighbor is the Juniper, and in the neighbor it inherits test. That's the templates to be used, and in the test templates there is the BGP monitor to start, and the BGP monitor gets JSON data, and it looks like this. Main part of the monitor is how to decode the BGP advertisements, and then it uses the library to set the message and to connect to the message server and send this message to the server. Just 3 lines of code. And then the prefix listener that is listening to this is receiving these kind of updates and send it to by mail to the NOC. And also here 3 lines of code to use this to set up the messenger, listen to prefix messages, and if a message received, then a callback function is run to send this message by email. And this also you can use, of course, instant messaging or other kind of messaging platforms for the customers. Are there any questions here?
As yet, Pim, I do not have any questions from the floor.
Right.
I'll give it a moment.
No questions? Okay, thank you. Then back to Keith, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah. Thank you very much, Pim.